DreAllDay.com.
How to make strong first impressions. Now, as the saying goes, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Everybody's heard that saying before. Also, you may have heard that a first impression is often a lasting impression, meaning the way that people first get introduced to you or the first thing that they notice and or feel about you is pretty much going to be the way that they see you forever, no matter what else gets presented to, from, by, or about you. And in my experience in life, that first impression that people get of you is often just that. It is the final way that they always see you, no matter what else happens, unless there's a really strong, emotionally altering situation that changes the way they see you. Generally, it doesn't change. Generally, they hold the same view of you for the most part. And in my experience, there's hardly anything you can do to change that first impression once somebody has set it in their mind. Because most people are not... The way that I would explain it, I would say most people are not objective neurological enough to understand that everyone has a representative in certain ways and in certain times and in certain places that they put themselves out there. And just because you saw them one way in a certain setting does not mean that's who they actually are. That may be very little of who they are. And it doesn't even mean that's the real version of any real version of them on any level, even though it was the first thing that you saw about them. And this is especially true if you're getting an impression of a person who knows that they are being watched by a lot of people, i.e. they know they're on camera, or they know they're a center of attention, or they know they are somehow, some way a spectacle in a certain environment. Most people don't understand that there are other layers and other things that you should probably know about a person besides the way you first come across them, regardless of how you first came across them. So this is the reason why, because of that, on the flip side, most people, the first thing they see is pretty much what they accept as the truth, even if what they were shown was a complete lie. So knowing that this is true, knowing that this is the way most humans look at life, let's make sure that you are controlling that first impression, because most people are going to get that. They're going to set it in their minds and it ain't changing. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is how to make strong first impressions. Number one, how you walk in is how you walk through, and is also how you walk out. What does that mean? Let me say it again. How you walk in is also how you walk through, and is also how you will walk out. As I said in the introduction, when people get a first impression of you, that impression sets in their mind, and they consider you to be the type of person that was impressed upon them the first time, even if their first impression is not even how you really are. You don't even do that most of the time. 1% of the time do you do what they saw you doing when they first met you. But even though they see you a different way 99% the other times, they don't even consider those times. They only consider what they saw that one time. One reason for this is that human beings, we are automatic deletion machines. Specifically, our minds are automatic deletion machines. And what that means is we don't have the mental capacity to take in every single impression we get of a person and update our systems, so to speak, with what we have just seen, such as an artificial intelligence bot can learn different layers of you and different things about you the more impressions it gets. And the human mind can do that, but the human mind generally does not do that. What we do instead is we get a set idea about a thing and we assume, okay, this is just what it is. And we live our whole lives with that paradigm through the rest of our lives. So if you're a 28-year-old woman listening to this right now, and when you were 4 years old, somehow, some way you got traumatized by a little bunny rabbit, you may still be nervous and have what most people will probably see as a irrational trauma around rabbits to this very day, simply because a bunny rabbit scared you when you were 4 years old. Now, does that make any logical sense that you're afraid of bunny rabbits? Logically, no, it doesn't make any sense. But because that was one of the early impressions you got and it was emotionally triggering, remember, emotionalization is one of the ways that you program the subconscious mind. It's very hard for you to get out of that without somebody helping you unprogram it. And if nobody does anything to unprogram it, then you just keep this faulty programming set in your mind for the rest of your life. Now, I'm using a silly example of a grown adult being afraid of a bunny rabbit, but understand that a lot of humans have a whole bunch of irrational ideas and irrational beliefs that they act on based on some nonsense that you learned in your youth, or some nonsense that you experienced in your youth, or just anything you heard, experienced, saw, read, etc., or were taught in your youth that is based on complete bullshit. But because you got it from a source that you trusted, either emotionally, mentally, whatever other way, it's stuck in your mind. This is the way that I talked about money mindset. I've done several episodes talking about money mindset. A lot of people have very poor mindsets around money simply because your parents had poor mindsets around money and they didn't know what they didn't know. You learned it from them, and you have never done the work to unlearn it. So you're walking around with a whole bunch of nonsense in your head around the concept of money. And on other subjects, people have these exact same problems. Some people have this issue when it comes to relationships. Some people have it when it comes to fitness. Some people have it when it comes to nutrition. Some people have it when it comes to communication and friends and how you respond to certain things that happen in your life. If you have never done conscious work to uncover what you believe and why you believe it, then you may be believing a whole bunch of nonsense and don't even realize that you're believing nonsense and don't even realize why you believe it in the first place. The whole point here is, folks, once we get a set idea, most humans, when they get a set idea of anything, regardless of where they got it from or how they got it, they pretty much hold on to it for the rest of their lives, regardless of anything else that happens. That sounds silly when I put it in that context, but if you really think about it, this is how most people operate. Most people who are over the age of 30, 40, 50 are operating on programming that was given to them when they were 12 years old. And they just got updated versions of that same programming, and they came up with more adult ways of languaging, explaining, and rationalizing the things that they learned when they were 12. Even if the things that they learned didn't make any sense. Now, I'm sure you learned some things that were good. Look both ways before crossing the street is a pretty good idea. You probably shouldn't just walk out into the street without looking. You might get hit by a car and killed. But there's a whole lot of other things that you might have learned when you were 11 or 8 from your parents who didn't know anything. And you've been living your whole life based on that paradigm, and the paradigm is based on bad information. And most people don't change. Keep this in mind. So people are allegedly supposed to be able to shape shift the way that they see things. The problem is human beings have a limited memory. We cannot retain everything that we see. We just keep the most important things and we eliminate everything else. Now, what is important? Well, for each person is unique. So to save time, space, and energy, we take the first impression we get of someone or something. We assume that that's all we need to know about that person, especially if it's something that we like about them. So if our first impression about somebody is something that we like to have as the impression of them, then generally we'll just let that set in our minds and we'll keep it that way. And it doesn't even matter whatever else we see from this person or hear from this person, whatever else we see this person do, we always see that first person that we met. That first person that we saw, we always see them as that because that's the way they came into our lives. So knowing that this is true, again, all of you better get active and conscious about what kind of impression you are making on the people who are coming across you, because that impression that they got ain't changing regardless of what they saw the first time they saw you, even if it was an exceptional moment for you. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how to make strong first impressions. Number 2, ask yourself better questions. Ask yourself better questions. Remember that with human beings, the quality of our answers are determined by the quality of the questions. If you want to see this in action, go listen to a witness get cross-examined in a courtroom. The quality of the questions determines what the witness can say. So, being that we're talking about making strong first impressions, I'm going to give you a few good questions that you should ask yourself along the lines of this subject. First question is, what type of first impression would you like to make on what people and for what reason? What type of first impression would you like to make on what people and what's the reason why you want to make the impression? It's a good question to ask yourself. Most people never ask this question because the first impressions that a lot of us make are not planned, nor are they strategic, and they end up not being the exact impression that we want it to make. The problem is you only think about this after the opportunity to make a first impression has been missed. So if you think about it ahead of time, like right now, if you think about what is the impression that you want other people to get of you when they come across you for the first time, then anyone you meet from this moment forward, you can actually have them get the right impression that you want them to get intentionally, instead of it just randomly happening. It's not me saying that you need to walk around with a camera crew following you and a spotlight over top of your head so that everybody notices you. What I'm saying is, if you are more conscious of the type of impression you are making on people when they do come across you, even if they're just in a car next to you at a red light, or they're watching you walk across the street, or they meet you in the donut shop when you go get your coffee tomorrow morning before work. If you're conscious of the impression that you're making on people, you're more likely to make the impression that you want, or at least you're more likely to get closer to it simply because you're consciously thinking about it. It's a good question to think about. So be planned and be strategic about this so that you can make the impression that you want to make, and you're not waiting until after the moment like, damn, I could have made a better impression on that person, but I missed the chance. So how do you want someone to think of you the next day when they're going off of the image that they got from you yesterday? So somebody met you on Thursday. What do you want them to think about you on Friday when they remember, oh yeah, I met that person yesterday? What do I think of them? What do you want to come to mind for that person? If someone has not met me yet and they're asking questions about me from someone who has met me, and let's say that person has met me only one time, what do I want the person who has met me to say? This is a question you're going to ask. Someone who's never heard of me before, never met me before, but they just heard my name, let's say. They just heard my name 5 seconds ago, and they say, who the hell is Mike? Who is Jen? Who is Jason? Who is Charlene? Who is Alex? And then somebody who has met you once can answer the question, what answer do you want that person who has met you once to give? And I'm not saying they're going to say, oh, he's a nice person, or she was very pretty, or he had all the answers. No. How do you want them to describe you as a person? In other words, how do you want to show up in such a way that when someone who does see you in that way describes you, it gives off the exact impression that you wanted them to get from the beginning? If someone hasn't met me yet, I'm thinking about what would someone else who has met me say about me to that person to give them an idea who Dre is. You want to ask the same question about yourself. All of these are good questions that you should be asking yourself, and questions that you should answer if you want to make strong first impressions. Because a strong first impression is relative. What is a strong first impression for you? How do you want people to see you? How do you want people to perceive you? What do you want people to think about you? If someone sees you and they remember you from where they first came across you, what kind of memory should be conjured up in their subconscious mind? Understand, folks, that people do not remember every single thing that they come across, read, hear, see, or even experience. We don't remember everything. We remember a few highlights from damn near every experience we have in life. Just a handful of highlights. What do you want the highlight to be in other people's minds of you? When people talk to me about going on media appearances, such as being on somebody's podcast, getting interviewed for a TV or radio show, standing on the stage, giving a speech, being part of a panel at an event, we talk about these things. What kind of impression do you want to give? How do you want to show up in such a way that you're putting the best possible image of yourself, and you decide what that best image is for what outcome? How do you position yourself to put that best image forward every time somebody comes across you? And keep in mind, folks, especially those of you who are in the public light, such as you put content out on the internet, you are being publicly exposed to a bunch of people all the time. And or you're in a place where you're just around a lot of human beings. You're in an office building, and there's a 30-story building, and there's a bunch of businesses and a bunch of companies in the building, and you're getting on and off the elevator, going down and getting coffee, and you're walking past and amongst a whole bunch of people who don't know you, but people are noticing you. And if they keep noticing you every day, then they mentally will start to quote unquote know you, and they're going to get a picture in their mind of who you are, what you're about, and they're going to fill in the gaps with their own imagination based on the impression that they're getting from you. My question then is, what kind of impression should they be getting from you? You get to decide this impression, because their impression is only based on what you're doing and what you're saying and the energy that you're carrying. So their whole impression is based on things they are reading off of you. Now, yes, two different people can read different things off the same person, but if you control the way you're showing up, then there's only so much they can read that goes out of the lines of what you want them to read, because you control the way that you show up. You control the energy. So if someone's not met me yet and they're asking somebody who has met me about me, I want to think to myself, what do I want that person to say? And is my impression, the way I'm showing up, reflective of what I want that person to say? You need to ask yourself this question if you want to make a strong first impression. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to make strong first impressions. Number 3, always be on. O-N, capital O, capital N, on. You never know upon whom you are making a first impression, as I said earlier. People may be observing you even when you think you are not being observed. That could be a challenging thing or an amazing thing about the world that we're in now, that you're always being watched even when you don't even know you're being watched. Somebody's watching you. Somebody is looking at what you're doing and they're getting an impression of you. I remember I was in it was a department store in the Plymouth Meeting Mall outside of Philadelphia. And I was maybe 17. And I was in a department store. I don't know which one it was. Maybe it was Boscov's. Y'all may remember that store called Boscov's. And I was in the store and I was looking in the men's like t-shirts department because I was trying to find some white t-shirts, like what some of you would call an undershirt. I was looking for some of those white t-shirts and they had the right size or the right cut for what I wanted. So I rummaged through a whole bunch of packages of them, didn't find what I wanted, and I left the store. Now, the thing is, I had a bag from another store with me the whole time that I was rummaging through the packaging. And then I walked out the store and I go downstairs and I'm standing in front of another store and two gentlemen approached me with walkie-talkies. They were in plain clothes and they walked up to me and said, hey, we're from the security department, the loss prevention department in Boscov's. And the guy said to them, this is a black guy, and he wasn't nasty about it, but he said, hey, they were watching you on camera and they thought you might have stole some undershirts from the store. Did you steal? He said, did you steal anything? I said, no, I didn't steal anything. And the guy said, he was about to say something on his walkie-talkie, and there's two guys together. They looked at each other, and the guy said, well, can we look at your bag? I said, sure, look at the bag. I opened the bag, and they looked at it, and they could see there were no undershirts inside the bag. And they was like, okay, all right, cool, sorry, whatever. Then they walked away. I'm saying all that. I'm giving you that example, that anecdote to say this. I was being watched and didn't even know I was being watched. I didn't know they were watching me on the security cameras the whole time that I was in the store. Now, these days, the security cameras are much more high-tech than this. And I know that their cameras are much more high-tech. They have facial recognition now. So now, if you walk into a Target store in Tallahassee today and buy something, and then next week you walk into a different Target in Nashville, their system recognizes that you're the same person from the store in Tallahassee when you walk into the store in Nashville. They are logging every single thing about you. They know what aisles you went in. They know what you put in your cart. When you check out, they know what you bought is all connected to your face. So they know every single thing about you. Target has, I'm using Target as an example, but any other store, big department stores, their loss prevention department is not humans anymore. Now it's computers. Their computers and AI are doing the tracking, and the AI tells the person who's working, like, hey, that person stole something, go get them. And the person didn't do shit. All the person is doing is looking at the computers. They didn't have to do any work anymore. And pretty soon, when we get the robots activated, there won't be any people working in loss prevention. Whole point is you're being watched, folks. And you're being watched in a more high-tech way than you ever thought possible. The point being, you are always making a first impression on somebody, anywhere, and you may be coming across that person again, or you may not. And with the internet and the technological tools that we have here today, you're making impressions on people who you may never actually meet in person, but they have an idea about you and an opinion about you simply because of what they may be able to find and track, even when you don't know that you're being found and tracked. Now, if you stand on the stage and give a speech in front of 1,000 people, you know that they're watching you, but you don't think about the fact you're being watched when you walk into a Walmart, but you are being watched and they are logging you and they do know exactly who you are. So many people you come across or who come across you, you may never see them again. So whatever impression you make on that person, it could be generally irrelevant. It may not actually matter because you'll never see them again. But if you are a public figure, especially if you are publicly putting yourself out there, again, social media users, you may cross paths with a lot of different people in many different ways. And again, you don't even realize that they're looking at you, but they know they're looking at you. So with a lot of different people and in many different ways, you're crossing paths with folks all the time. Again, just because you don't see another person does not mean that they may not be engaging with you in some form on their own volition. So for example, I go to the gym and I work out. Now, let's say I go to the gym and I don't really talk to the gym that I go to these days. I don't really talk to anyone. All right, the person at the front desk would know my name because when I swipe my membership barcode, it has my name come up on the screen. But other than that, nobody else in there knows my name, not for me at least. Now, maybe they can go to the front desk and say, hey, what's that guy's name? And they can find out, and I guess they can Google me. I don't know. And that's the whole point. I go to the gym and I work out, and I know I'm conspicuous when I'm in a gym because I'm tall, I'm in good shape, and when people see me in the gym, they assume that I'm an athlete, which I am an athlete. I don't mind the assumption. And I'm sure it gets some people curious, like, who the hell is this guy who's always in here? What's his name? They go Google me and they can look me up, and I'm pretty easy to find. I'm pretty sure there are people who are looking me up and finding out things about me that I put out there or that somebody else has said about me, and I don't even know that they know because they never made themselves known to me. So I don't know that they've went and looked me up, even though they're looking at all my shit, might be even listening to the show, and I have no idea that they even are paying attention to me. I do have an idea because I just told you, because I understand how I am generally perceived. And all of you should be more cognizant of how you're being generally perceived and what people may be doing with that perception And the thing is, the reason I'm bringing that up is because people can go find out things about you without you knowing that they're looking. And you may never know. You may never know. That's the interesting thing. So if you're a public figure, you can be observed by people who you can't observe. They can look at you, but you can't look at them. This is what the internet has allowed, folks. This is what technology is making even more allowable. And whatever way you are carrying yourself all day, every day, understand that you are being observed and people are making judgment calls about you right then and there in that moment. Even though what you're doing may be a routine and everyday thing for you, it is a first impression for them. So again, think about how you're coming across. Always keep this in mind. And with that in mind, make sure you are putting the best version of yourself forward, because someone is seeing you for the first and maybe the last time based on what they see right then and there in that moment. Even though you're not trying to quote unquote impress anyone, understand that you're making an impression on everyone with everything that you do, whether you are trying to or not. This is no longer optional. Let's recap today's class, which is how to make strong first impressions. As the saying goes, you never get a second chance to make your first impression. Also, you may have heard that first impressions are lasting impressions. And because most human beings are mentally and physically lazy, most people draw a first conclusion about you and they pretty much let it stay that way. Right? They don't change. So whatever first impression you make, you better make sure it's a good one. Here's how you do it. Number one, remember that how you walk in is how you walk through, and is also how you'll walk out. In other words, the way people first come across you is pretty much the opinion they're going to have of you, regardless of what other information gets presented to them. Why? Because as I just told you, most human beings are mentally lazy. So they don't want to do the work of remapping their impression of you because they already got one. Why change it? Because they already have one. So why do anything different? Why? Because it would take effort. That's why I don't do anything different. Point number two, ask yourself better questions. Remember that with human beings, the quality of the answer is determined by the quality of the question. So some quality questions you should ask yourself is, what kind of first impression do I want to make on people? And why do I want to make that impression? It's a good question to ask, because when you answer that question, you'll start to look at yourself and say, okay, is the answer that I just gave matching the way I'm showing up? If the answer is not 100% yes, then you need to make some adjustments. It's a really good question to ask. If I come across a person and they think about me the next day, what do I want them to remember? Because they're not going to remember every single detail about you, but they will remember some high level things. What do you want them to remember? Good question, because you can control that. If someone who doesn't know me asks about me and a person who does know me gives an answer, what do I want that person to say? Again, good question to ask. Number three, always be on. What does on mean? For you, it may be different than it is for the next person, but you need to decide what on means for you, because you never know upon whom you are making a first impression. And remember that you are always being observed, even when you don't think you're being observed. You walk into a Target or a Walmart or a Whole Foods or a Nordstrom or a big mall in your town or into an airport, you are being observed by a whole bunch of people and by a system that is tracking your every single move and can track your moves from one place to the next through facial recognition, because no two faces are exactly the same. They know exactly who you are, and you are making an impression on whoever's watching those computers all the time. Now, that may scare you. Okay, if you're scared, get a dog. And if you are intrigued by it, fine. But whatever, I don't care how you feel about it, just know that it's true. This is the reason why I'm bringing it up. It's true. There's an impression being made. So what kind of impression do you want to make? These are things that you need to keep in mind, because especially if you're a public figure, you are crossing paths with people all the time and you don't even know they're watching you. You don't even know they're observing you, but they are. So I'm bringing it to your consciousness right now. Therefore, you better make sure that if somebody sees you, that they're seeing the right thing. I remember hearing one of the members of this, there was an R&B group back in the 90s called 112. They were signed to a label called Bad Boy, which was headed by this guy named, most of you call him Diddy. I knew him as Puffy, Sean Puffy or Puff Daddy Combs back in the day. And Diddy was very big on brand. I mean, the reason he is still a known name to this very day, by the time you hear this episode, they probably have reached a conclusion in his federal trial. But as of today, they have not yet. But one of the things that one of the members of 112, the R&B group, said that Diddy would always tell them as artists is that understand that you always need to be on, because you all are out there now. You're assigned to this label and you're pretty well known because of who you're signed to. Understand that even if you're walking to the mailbox, somebody is seeing you and they have a certain image of you because they saw you on TV. You better make sure you're matching that image. Now, it doesn't mean you got to be with jewelry on and walking around with sunglasses and a business suit every time you go get the mail, but understand that you're being observed. And no matter what you're doing, somebody might pull out a camera and see you, or somebody's going to get a vision of you in their mind and they're going to go off of that, and you better match the way that you've been putting yourself out there, because that might determine whether you sell another record or you don't. These are things you all want to keep in mind too, even if you're not a famous R&B singer. WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com, folks. That's where you get coached by me. That's where you can join. We have different levels of programs. You can see it very clear, very easy decision to make as to which level you want to get started at. Either way, you're getting direct access to me. Go to WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all